In this video, we are going to go through budgetary control. So the first question that you need to ask yourself is, what do we mean by budgetary control? What is it? Well, essentially, it is assessing our actual performance against our budgeted performance and taking corrective action wherever is appropriate and wherever we possibly can. It should be done as a systematic approach, telling managers whether they are achieving what they want. If they are not achieving what they want, then obviously corrective action must be taken or sought. It focuses on total costs for a department or business unit, and costs will then be the responsibility of an individual. That responsible individual is then going to be able to decide whether the cost of the budget needs to be taken under control or whether that budget was unrealistic and should be corrected. So, what are the characteristics then if we have an effective budgetary control in place? Firstly, variance reports should be produced in a timely manner with a serious attitude. Targets should be budgeted to be challenging, but also achievable. There should be reports done aimed at individual managers in short reporting periods. It is also going to be needed that operations are going to have to be taken back under control if there is an issue with it, and therefore the appropriate actions must be put in place or must be sought in order to achieve that. So part of budgetary control then looks at feedback and feed-forward control. So we will firstly have a look at feedback control. What is it? Well, feedback control aims to correct any problems that have been discovered at period end once the actual results have been compared to those that were budgeted. If there is a significant difference, it will be investigated and it will then be corrected if desirable. They are reactive when this feedback happens because it generally tends to occur after the event. It is feedback. If negative feedback has been sought, corrective action, which is intended to bring actual performance closer to the target or plan, may be needed. Positive feedback will lead to corrective action, which is intended to increase the difference between actual performance and the target or plan. How does it work then? Well, an organisation will prepare a budget. They will commit their resources to actually achieving the budgeted target. The business would then use their resources to make its products and provide services, and outputs from the system are going to be measured. That measurement will provide feedback information to management, and they will then compare the actual results to the budgeted results. If it is identified that there is a need for control action, the manager responsible will take suitable action. Moving on then to feed-forward control. What is it? Well, essentially, it's the opposite of feedback control, and this aims to anticipate issues with the aim of preventing them from occurring in the first place, making it a more proactive approach than feedback control. It operates by comparing results which are currently expected in light of the latest information and desired results. It will compare the target or objectives for the period, as well as what the actual results are actually forecast to be for now. Control reports then. So these can actually be presented for both feedback and feed-forward controls, but they're going to have different layouts. Feedback control is going to look backwards at the performance of the period, whilst feed-forward control is going to look forward and create expectations about future performance, aiming to identify any potential issues which may arise with rectifications, whereby your feedback control is going to consider any differences from the planned performance of the actual period. couple of terms then that you're probably familiar with by now are fixed and flexed budgets. Let's quickly just recap on what they mean. Well, a fixed budget is a budget which is set prior to the control period and it does not subsequently change in response to changes in activity, cost, or revenue. It could well serve as a benchmark for an organisation in performance evaluation. A flexible budget then, these are budgets which, by recognising different cost behaviour patterns, are designed to change as the volume of activity changes. And a flex budget is when we flex variable costs from our original budgeted levels to the allowances permitted for actual volume achieved while maintaining our fixed costs at original budgeted levels. How do we prepare a flexed budget then? Well, managers must identify cost behaviours before preparing a flexed budget. What is fixed, what is variable, what is semi-variable, and what is stepped? The budget cost allowance for each item can be calculated as below. We take our budgeted fixed costs and then we add our number of units produced multiplied by our variable cost per unit. So essentially our total variable cost of the product that we are producing. Responsibility, accounting then, and controllability of costs. We sometimes get controllable costs and we also get uncontrollable costs. So controllable costs then are costs which are going to be influenced by the budget holder. They are generally going to be considered to be variable or directly attributable fixed costs. Contrary, our uncontrollable costs are costs which cannot be influenced by management actions. Behavioural aspects of budgeting then. How can a budget be set? Well, there's two ways that we can do this primarily. We can either use top down or we can use bottom up. So top down is quite an imposed budget style. The budget is going to be set centrally with higher management. The actual budget holder probably isn't going to have much of a say. It should improve coordination and it will avoid some goal congruence issues. The opposite of this is the bottom-up approach, which is a participative approach. So this is when budget holders do get involved in helping to set the budgets for the next period. Because of this, theoretically, budgets should be more accurate and should thus act as a better motivator. Advantages of each budget style then. So we have our imposed style first, which is our top-down. So managers may not necessarily possess the necessary skills to actually prepare the budget to a meaningful level, nor may they have the motivation to actually do it. Senior managers are going to be aware of the long-term strategic goals, so can create budgets that align in goal with the vision of the organisation. And if our lower level managers did get involved, they could well create a budget being biased, making it easy for them to achieve so that they can hit their targets. Whereas if the senior members are doing it, they are likely to avoid any bias and they are going to make a target challenging. Participative style then, our bottom-up approach, it could actually improve your management morale because you're getting them involved. They are also able to produce more realistic budgets because of that. And because the managers have set them themselves, they are more likely to strive to achieve it because they've personally been involved in those decision-making budget techniques. Budget and motivation then. So if a budget is going to have an impact on performance and help to be a motivator, it must be known to the recipients and they must feel committed to achieving it. They must also think that it is achievable. but at the same time, it needs to be challenging enough for them to actually want to do it. So therefore, it needs to be set at the right level of difficulty if it is going to act as any sort of motivator. So as budgets become tighter, they act as stronger motivators. So what happens if, few little scenarios regarding as to how we set our budget. The budget target that is set is too easy. Well, actual performance is going to be likely to be better, but it's not going to be optimal. There's going to be minimum possible effort in input to get the desired target by staff. The budget set is too difficult. Well, this is going to be based on ideal levels of performance, which can discourage managers to meet targets because they think they're just too unrealistic. Actual performance could also fall short of what is going to be reasonably expected from them. Ideally, what we want is the right level of difficulty from our budget. This means that our budget will be tough but attainable. One last thing I want to cover with you before I end this video today is the ethical aspects of budgeting. There are some dilemmas that may occur during this process. First of all, it could be the inclusion of slack. So managers could well make their budgets easier to achieve, to protect financial rewards, reduce workloads, etc. Essentially, they are doing it for their own benefit. Could be through a lack of goal congruence. Manager puts their personal goals ahead of any organizational goals. Could even be through overstating results. Overly optimistic budgets may be produced for the outcomes to be favourable constantly. It could be due to the undue influence of budget holders. Undue pressure may be put on departmental managers to achieve a desired result. It could be pseudo-participation, which essentially means that rather than just main management creating the budget, departmental managers should be involved because they know their areas best. And the last one, as an ethical dilemma as to what a budget may cause, could be the budget as being seen as a cash pot. Managers may well see that budgeted figures as cash, and thus they must spend whatever budget they have been given, when necessarily that's not always the case.